All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, July 6th, 2021. And folks, I got to tell you, first off, I want to say thank you for all your patience. We've been working on a lot of long-form stuff for the members and also for the public episodes as well, too, to change things up, to make things a little more entertaining. So we've taken the last couple days to sort of work on some new forms and styles of content, in addition to, obviously, the episodes that you all know and love as per usual. So anyways, aside from that, I have to say, folks, this weekend, I'm doing some research, I'm watching some documentaries, things like that, and my phone is going off with the news alerts, right, from all the mainstream outlets, because we have to be vigilant and look at everything, right, or at least I do, to report for this episode. And you know what I'm seeing, guys? They're trying to make news out of nothing. There's nothing to talk about. And I'm not trying to reiterate the whole thing about, oh, now that Trump is gone. It's not even about that. It's just when there's no Trump, when there's no military conflict, when there's no big story, it's hard to sort of grasp for things. So the news outlets seem to sort of spread themselves thin, if you will. With that being said, though, it took me a little longer to sort of pull back the curtains of all the BS, and turns out I kind of got some good news from all over the world. So let's catch up. So to begin with, Meghan McCain, John McCain's son, is leaving The View. Now, for those who don't know, The View is an American show that is a panel of women: Whoopi Goldberg, Meghan McCain, a handful of other women as well, too. Please forgive me, I don't remember all their names. But anyways, Meghan McCain has always been more conservative, but here's the thing, though. She's always been known, even if people don't tell her to her face, as sort of like the, Meghan, do you know who my father was, McCain type of thing. She has the trust fund, so she's always been clashing with other people on the show all the time, and now she's leaving. I'm not going to cover it anymore because I don't think it's worth covering any longer, but for those that want to look into what actually occurred there, or the attitude she always used to give on the show, then by all means. I mean, look, I think they kept her on because she brought in the ratings and the numbers, but because she always used to argue off air and on air with the woman, her co-workers, allegedly. So again, I guess it's a business decision. I'm not sure. But anyways, the next thing is that the Trump Organization and the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, Alan Weisselberg, have been charged with a bunch of stuff, inflating assets, tax fraud, many different things. Now, apparently, Alan Weisselberg is going to plead not guilty. He's going to fight it. Now, there's some aspect of this where people are saying, oh my gosh, this is really a cult, the Trump cult and this and that. Look, folks, we need to look at the history of Alan Weisselberg, the Trump Organization's chief financial officer. Now, I want to make something very clear for those that listen to this show just for the news and you're really not into, business that much or anything like that. Long story short, because the Trump Organization is, I believe, a corporation, if I'm not mistaken, or something of the sort, an LLC, you name it, Trump cannot be personally charged, because when you have a corporation, your business is actually its own entity, if you want to call it. It's like its own person. So the question is, will they go after Trump directly, right? Now, with that being said, I want to make it very clear as well. We have to remember, folks, that Alan Weisselberg was there when Donald Trump's father was working at the Trump Organization, and they were, doing buildings and developments and things like that. So that guy's been there for a while, which can go either way, meaning that he can flip and, bring out all the skeletons in the closet, metaphorically, or because of how long he's been there for, he's going to stay loyal to the Trump family no matter what. So again, we'll see what happens, right? It could go either way, honestly. Here's the thing, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? So the next thing is that there is a new COVID, and I hate covering this kind of stuff, but I have to. There's a new COVID strain called Lambda, Lambda is how it's spelt, apparently straight out of the UK, that's allegedly even worse than the Delta variant. Now, the WHO, which again we have to question because of their infiltration, and a lot of whistleblowers who have been smuggled or immigrated to the States from North Korea, from China, from many different places, have been saying, like, listen, this is not good. This is what's happening here with regards to the corruption from the WHO is very bad. So the point I'm trying to make is, if the WHO says it, I question it. And I think we all should. I mean, I think we were all questioning everything even before these whistleblowers came out. But notice how the mainstream media is not interviewing any of these whistleblowers. You have to go on independent, mind you, granted, large podcasts, but you have to go to independent podcasters to see these people. The corporation, the corporate media is not covering it. Right? Now, but what they are covering is, of course, the Lambda strain. Look, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a simple person, and maybe we shouldn't always look at things like this, but at this point, there's so many strains, so much I feel fear-mongering and things like this. if it's a bad strain, then it's a bad strain, and if it's legit, then it is legit. If it's not, then it's not. I mean, again, maybe some of you might be saying, Dave, what the hell you mean by that? Well, folks, there's so many different names, strains, and there's so many reports and documents. Some of it is, falsified info. It's all nonsense. What's the point of even digging into it? It's like trying to find a needle in the haystack, and you're not even guaranteed if the needle's there. Meaning, we're not even guaranteed if this lambda strain is even legitimate. So again, that's how I personally view it. I think a lot of you are on the same page as well. The next thing is that Iran created a clock a while ago that counts down Israel's alleged doomsday or destruction. I'm not even kidding. Now, following repeated power cuts in the country, the clock has stopped while residents in Iran chant "Death to Dictator." That's what they're chanting due to the power outages as well, too. They're very upset about that. Again, look, I believe this. They're chanting this to the new prime minister of Iran. This is a lot of people will say, a lot of nationalists, populists, things like this. People will say, that's their problem. Let them solve their own issues. And right now, I think we got a lot of problems in the West. I think we got a lot of problems in Europe. I think we got a lot of problems in the Middle East. And I think, respectively, each leader should be confined relative to their respective nation and focus more inwards at the moment to fix the problems. And you'll see what I mean by that more with an example I'll give shortly. But anyways, the next thing is that, and sorry, what I mean by this Iran thing is basically, if it's your country, it's your problem, right? Now, it's different if, there's an intelligence operation that's causing these power outages and things like this. That might be a proxy response from the CIA. But again, these responses are getting to the point now because of the technology where people's day-to-day jobs, infrastructure can literally be affected. I mean, folks, if for those who have been following the show for the past, handful of months, if you remember about 2.5 months ago, I was basically out for a week because for a couple days, barely being able to communicate with any of you folks, let alone I wasn't even able to call 911 because there was a cell tower outage all across Canada. Mainstream media didn't report it. It certainly seemed like an intelligence operation to me, for many other reasons too. But anyways, the next thing is that the Luxembourg Prime Minister has seriously fallen ill with COVID, even though he got his AstraZeneca vaccine, his first shot, on May the 6th. Again, everyone's bodies have different reactions, I would imagine. Again, I'm not trying to give medical advice. I'm not a doctor or anything like this. But at the same time, I mean, look, it depends on his age and things like this. Now, also, I want to make it very clear, too, that who knows if he received, there's I'll say there are presumptions that there are different types of vaccines. The elites are getting, the better ones, if you will, or the world leaders, and then we are getting the crappier ones. I don't know. I honestly think, who knows if there was even anything in the vaccine. This is the problem, folks. Like, I'm not trying to play both sides, but how can you even try to play one side of trying to justify the potential benefits of the vaccine when you don't even know what's going on, right? And this is the problem. So again, in this case, I try to play both sides, but it's difficult, right? We're seeing people question things more and more. So, and by the way, I also want to mention very quickly, there's been a report that's come out that I will be covering in the members episodes about how millions have been infected or have been experiencing major side effects that the mainstream media is now reporting, right? A lot of people think because the media doesn't report it or the WHO doesn't, it's not there, but I think you folks know better than I do. The next thing is that the U.S. Army has reportedly directed commands to prepare to administer mandatory COVID vaccines to service members as early as September 1st. Now, this is interesting because aside from the legal aspect, I'm not going to get into that because I don't know the legalities of when you're a soldier, what you have to take and what you can refuse and your rights and things like this. With that being said, this is an interesting case because let's assume, for a second, let's assume hypothetically one side of the angle that COVID is legitimate. What we now have is that people are saying, okay, if you don't want to get the vaccine, then that is your right. However, if you don't and you catch it, you spread it, that is now, your responsibility or your fault if you've infected someone else. Some countries and nations have tried to even make it manslaughter. Now, that's one side of it. Personally, I don't agree with that, but before we get to the opinion part of it, let's just cover this. Now, the next thing becomes, you're a soldier, right? And what do you do at that particular case? You don't want to take the vaccine. You want to fight for your country. Does the government have the right to make you take all of it? Now, if we get into a little more of a conspiratorial side of it, it could be that, again, if there is a kill switch in the vaccine or something of the sort, again, it would allow for the elites at the very, very top to not be threatened by their own military if there were ever to be some coup or something like this. And I know some of you might be thinking, Dave, what ridiculousness are you talking about? Well, folks, the world's in chaos right now. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that does end up happening in the West, or some type of, rebellion, and and soldiers separate and things like this, go into their own factions. And again, the vaccine may be one way to control that by demanding that the soldiers take it. So the next thing is that the Taliban said to NATO and the U.S., to basically the U.S., because we all know the U.S. basically runs NATO essentially, but to have all troops out by September 11th, or they will be treated as occupying forces. Okay. I mean, look, they want to get out. Okay, the Taliban made a statement. Let's see what happens. Pretty simple to me, right? The next thing is that a fully vaccinated student in Tel Aviv in Israel infected 83 other peers, and he got it from someone else who was fully vaccinated, and that person also got it from someone else who was fully vaccinated as well. Holy crap. So basically, it's like if I went to a party, infected 83 other people, even though I was fully vaccinated, and I still spread COVID. And I quarantined while the vaccine was settling in and things like that. So, I had the utmost full potential. Okay, fine. It spreads to 83 people. All right. So clearly that's not a rarity, if you want to call it. On top of that, I'm just using myself as an example for this guy. I got it from someone else who was fully vaccinated too, and that person got it from a family member who was also fully vaccinated. So you see why the mainstream media won't report this? If they report this just once on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, people are going to start questioning the vaccine like crazy, right? So, again, this is life in general. Anything that favors a certain narrative, whether true or not, but especially if it's true, the mainstream media won't do it. So, again, I'm not trying to tell you folks what to think, but please, by all means, decide for yourselves in this case, as am I. The next thing is that an AN-27 commercial aircraft has gone missing in Russia, it was missing, excuse me. They then found the plane, and I believe everyone on the plane had died. It's unfortunate. I would imagine Putin's going to make a speech, formal investigation, the whole thing, right? So again, it seems pretty simple to me. Could it have been an intelligence operation, just keeping our, antennas up, if you want to call it, or our finger on the pulse? It could very well have been if someone of intelligence interest was on that plane, right? We all know the Russian government tends to be a little more direct. No disrespect to the Russian people. I'm speaking of the government, or the regime, or whatever you want to call it. Could be a simple plane crash, right? Shit happens, unfortunately. The next thing is that 92 were shot, 16 people killed, and 6 kids were among the wounded in Chicago just this past weekend. That's like at most 72 hours tops. That's bad. That's and this is what I mean about what I was saying earlier about looking inward with respects to countries and stuff. I mean, folks, I'm not an American. I mean, no disrespect, but I mean, look, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like Trump or anyone here. I'm just my own opinion. Look at Chicago. There's more people dying in Chicago in 48 to 72 hours than in the Middle East, at least from what we know. That's terrible. You got to focus on your own nation. And I say the West because I'll be honest, folks, if things start going bad in America, it tends to simmer down to Canada. Not all of Canada, but I mean, Toronto's like a mini New York or California, so it kind of simmers there. Economically, culturally, definitely, and many different ways, right? So again, as they say, America coughs, Canada sneezes. So it's kind of, we follow. The next thing is that a former diplomat and Inuit leader was named as Canada's next Governor General, the first Indigenous person to hold the position. Okay, here's the thing about that. No problem. If she does a good job, I have no problem. She could be black, Asian, race does not matter to me, folks, and you all know that. But this is clearly a sort of an apology, if you will, for all the Indigenous children, and some may argue rightfully so. Right? Is she qualified? Okay, here's the thing. And I say this about every other aspect. Yes, it's very unfortunate to find the bodies of the children. No one is more upset about that than myself and many others. And you all, especially members who watch the episodes where we cover much more in detail that stuff, you all know. With that being said, though, if she's not a good diplomat, with all due respect, give her another position. Now, if she is a good diplomat, that's a different story. So let's see what happens, right? Let's see what comes of that. Now, again, obviously, the elephant in the room is that Trudeau's probably doing this because of all the kids and the bodies being dug up on Indigenous grounds, right? Again, let's call things like they are. It's unfortunate to say, but it's true. A lot of people in those rooms won't call it like it is, but we have to, right? The next thing is that an Indian hospital closed after there was a massive vaccine scam going on where vaccines and vials that had saline or just regular antibiotics in them were injected into thousands of people. Holy crap. Again, this is the thing. Now, India is very different because the population is far more significant and things like that. People worry that's what's going to happen to the West. We're going to become like Brazil and India just because of the population. Uncontrolled scams, more crime, things like that. Again, I don't have the answer, folks. I'll be totally honest. I wish I did. I wish I even had an opinion. The thing is that, India, there's, what, 1 billion people just north of that? Something like that? Or is that China? Either or, there's about 1 billion in each, I believe, give or take. So, I mean, that's a lot of people. The U.S. has, on paper, about 330 million if you count the illegal immigrants. I'm just taking a rough shot. Let's just say 350 million, maybe more. That's still, only 40%, or in some cases 30%, some cases 25% of what other countries, major countries have. So again, maybe it just comes down to India needs a more controlled system. But even then, that's scary too. It's because control, right? So you see how this becomes a problem, folks, because you see this leads into philosophy and so many other things. The next thing is that the European Union wants to make their entire continent climate neutral by 2050. The whole continent, all the countries got to agree. I don't know if that's realistic, even with, 30 years from now. But anyways, the next thing is that Ghana plans to issue Africa's first social bonds with a $2 billion sale. Cool. Great to see, if these bonds are good for the people, that's great to see. The next thing is that the U.S. left Bagram, Afghanistan, at night with no notice, say Afghan citizens, the ones that wanted to be protected, because now they fear the Taliban. Again, folks, it depends on in that particular area. If the soldiers said they were going to stay, then they left. If they were, just repeating commands from above and then commands changed. I don't want to say shit happens in this case because this sounds dangerous and scary. I don't wish this on anyone to fear for their lives. But I don't know, again, this is the Biden neoliberal, neocon, military-industrial complex, warmongering ideology, right? The next thing is that the UK semiconductor firm was bought by a Chinese company. Now, another Chinese company went public on the stock market and things like that. China, the CCP themselves, are ignoring all of these, implications and warnings and threats and stuff like that. They don't really seem to care, at least on a public level, so we'll see what happens. But a lot of people are now seeing what China's been doing for the last 20, 30, 40 years, which is infiltrate culture, because it transcends legitimate political barriers, it seems, right? The next thing is that El Chapo's former safe house is going to be raffled off. Okay, cool. I guess why not? Iceland, the government of Iceland, or the country of Iceland, says that their 4-day work week is an overwhelming success. Again, this has been the thing where they say people actually work better with 4-day work weeks. Maybe the days themselves are a little longer, right? But instead of 2 days off, you get 3 days off. They've been talking about this for a while. Again, I always say, I know everyone's different individually, but I believe, whether it's a business or anything in life, by treating employees good, they will come back and work harder for you. And sometimes treating them good means giving them more time off. Look, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, and maybe if it doesn't work for certain people around the world, but people in Iceland it does, sure. With that being said, we also have to, again, no disrespect, we have to be vigilant of the economies, right? Does the Iceland economy move as quickly as the American or the Canadian or the European? Because a lot of people are go, go, go compared to other countries, right? So in terms of their everyday business and how things operate, which makes for an overall quicker producing economy. But hey, if it works, it works. And the final thing is that Britney Spears' manager resigned after 25 years after she lost the court battle with the father. He gets to keep her conservatorship or whatever it's called, basically keep control over her. Look, it's interesting. People were saying, they were protesting for free Britney, and then Bill Cosby ends up getting freed on a technicality. I don't know what to say. Look, she's a human being like everyone else in the world. There are people doing better than her. There are people doing worse than her, just like everyone else in life. I don't know what anyone would want me to say about this. But anyways, with that being said, folks, thank you all so much. We'll catch all of you a little later on. Cheers.